So I checked my blood sugar for the last 2 weeks. 1 week where I had done my Mounjaro injection, and then the second week was the week where I was like on a break, so to speak, because I am in maintenance, and we'll talk all about that. But first, let's look at this shirt. This is my very, 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 very favorite sweater for the fall time, the cold season time, because it just sums me up all together. Perfectly imperfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. Welcome guys, my name is Patrice, The.Patrice.Denise. I'm over here living a healthy, sustainable life, one day at a time, one step at a time. Thank you for clicking on this video. I am on the medication Mounjaro, which is used to manage and control the blood sugars in type 2 diabetes. I've been on this medication for well over 3 years. This is 2025. I always forget. Coming up on 3 years. I'll be on this medication coming up on 3 years here at the end of November. But in my first year on the medication, I checked my blood sugar, my fasting blood sugar every single day, except for a week where I was on vacation. I forgot my glucometer, but I checked it every single day for a year. And that helped me to just understand what my intake does to my blood sugars. And it helped me to tweak and turn and go from this and that and do different things in my health journey. So I had a question from Tiffany Collins, and I wanted to kind of go through the question that she posted here, as well as talk about my own blood sugars and hopefully answer this question, as well as give you my real and raw information in the midst of it. If you're on a GLP-1 medication or managing diabetes even without a GLP-1 medication, understanding your fasting, your post-meal blood sugar, your A1C, all of that plays a part in understanding your body as you manage and control type 2 diabetes for myself, as well as any other type of diabetes that you may have, because there are many other types of diabetes. I have some information here in front of me, so I will be looking back and forth here. Just wanted you to understand that, because I have my previous fasting blood sugars from labs that I had drawn, as well as my blood sugars that I took myself with my glucometer over the last 2 weeks, and I want to reference those, as well as just other information that I want to reference as we go through this discussion. So what does fasting blood sugar mean? What is that all about? Why am I checking my fasting blood sugar? What does the word fasting mean? Well, essentially it means no food for at least 8 hours. And then what this does and why I'm checking the fasting blood sugar, what that means is that I'm just trying to understand how my body processes and regulates my blood sugar overnight. Now, I do mine myself, and as well as other diabetics, they may do their fasting blood sugars, but they might check other times of the day as well. But I'm checking the fasting blood sugar, and a provider might ask you to get a fasting blood sugar check in the lab as part of your annual lab, so that helps them to just see a glimpse right then and there of what your fasting blood sugar is. We'll talk about A1C because that is a better picture of your blood sugars over time. We'll talk about that in a second. But fasting blood sugar, so the range. What does the range mean? Well, now the range, we got to keep in mind, this is the range that they use, the providers, the medical healthcare professionals, they use this range to determine if you need to move forward with getting other tests to determine if you have diabetes. So I want you to keep that in mind when we're looking at the different ranges. And also keep in mind that the range that your provider may be using is based on that particular lab that they use, or based on the materials that they follow, or some can get it from the CDC or the American Diabetes Association. And that's where I got these charts from, as I got it from the American Diabetes Association as well as the CDC. And so you see that the range for a normal fasting blood sugar is less than 100. Pre-diabetes would be 100 milligrams per deciliters to 125 milligrams per deciliters. And then diabetes, this, if you went in and had a fasting blood sugar drawn and your fasting blood sugar was 126 or higher, then your provider would say, oh wait, we might need to check this person further to see if they have actual diabetes. So keep that in mind, the ranges here. Like I said, the ranges, depending on which chart you're using, might be a little bit different. So normal 70 to 99, pre-diabetes 100 to 125, and diabetes 126 and above. You can even go a little bit further and specify for pregnant individuals, people who have diabetes, what their fasting blood sugars tend to look like, children and adolescents. And then I saw a chart too where it talked about people over 50, and we're going to look at that as well. So I use my fasting blood sugar to help me just to understand on a day-by-day basis where I fall into according to these categories. So that's how I use my fasting blood sugar, just to kind of say, okay, if my blood sugar continues to stay in this range, then my A1C will probably be in this range. And let's talk about what an A1C is. An A1C is the 2 to 3 month average of your blood sugars. And basically, without getting into scientific terms, it's just seeing how much blood sugar, how much blood and sugar together, combining together, is in your bloodstream over the last 3 months. So that is the gold standard that the doctors use to determine if you have type 2 diabetes, because they don't want to see just one glimpse in time, because you may have had a high carb dinner last night, you may have went out for ice cream last night, you may have had a stressful time in your life right now or yesterday, and the cortisol and so forth. You may have had a bad day yesterday, or you may have had a great day yesterday, and it can affect your blood sugar. So the A1C helps them to get a better picture of where your blood sugar is at over the last 3 months, and that will determine if you have diabetes. Now, let's talk about after meals. So sometimes you want to check your blood sugar after you've had a meal. People who have type 2 diabetes, who are using insulin and just trying to get better control, they may check their blood sugars after they've had a meal, and they will check it 1 to 2 hours after that meal to determine where they're at in their controlling of their blood sugars. So that's the postprandial. And looking here at the information here, it says that range is for a healthy adult is 140 or less after 2 hours. And for people who have diabetes, they normally see their postprandial number 180 or lower after eating after 2 hours. And then for older adults, they have different guidelines, but their normal range is still below 140 after 2 hours. But they may, their provider may say, okay, it's okay for them to have slightly higher numbers and give them below 150. And that's because of the age. So what we want to keep in mind here is that all of this information is for the general public. However, your doctor or your provider will give you more specific, individualized criteria where they want you to fall. So yes, we do have these references and we do have these standards, but you always want to consult with your provider to get a better understanding of where they want you to be at, where you should be at, because you may be at a different stage in your disease process than someone else, and that will affect your numbers. So here I'm showing you my blood sugars, and this is my blood sugars when I got them drawn with my annual labs. And this is from 2020 all the way to up to now in 2025. Now, however, you see February 26, 2020, there was a gap. November 3rd, 2021. Now, I told y'all in previous videos that I wasn't taking care of myself a few years ago. So this right here is proof. I was avoiding going to the doctor. I was avoiding it until I started really saying, okay, let me take better care of myself. Then I went back to the doctor. How many of us have done that? We avoid going to the doctor when we know we're not doing what we're supposed to do for ourselves, right? Right. So February 26, 2020, my fasting blood sugar was 196. Now, if we go back to the chart, that means I was definitely at the diabetic range. So that was in February 26th of 2020. I believe at that time my A1C was, you know what, I could check. Where's my phone? I think it was in the 6 or it was at the time it was a 10. I think, yeah, no, that's when it was a 10. It was a 10 at that time. And then I started on Ozempic and it went down. Back in the fall of 2022, and as you see, my fasting blood sugar was 107. I believe that's when my A1C was a 6. Okay, then I got on Mounjaro and my fasting blood sugars have been great ever since. And see the range? This is the range that the lab uses, which is the standard range, 70 to 99. So if I had not been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes already and my provider was looking at my blood sugars, my fasting blood sugar, and he didn't order an A1C test or anything like that, then if I had the number of 80, he would have said, okay, you're fine, you're in a normal range. But if I had the number of 107, he would have said, oh, you're in the pre-diabetic range. You need to get an A1C test done for you so we can see further. Or definitely if he saw my fasting blood sugar was 196, he probably would have definitely said, let's get an A1C drawn so we can see what that says. So like I said, these numbers are used as diagnostics are used to determine what you should do moving forward. So if your provider is checking it, they're seeing where you're at according to the treatment plan that they have placed. If you're checking it on your own at home, you're seeing if what you're doing on a daily basis is working, or do you need to tweak something. So that's why we check our blood sugars. That's why that's why I check my fasting to see if what I'm doing should be tweaked. Now, when I was doing my research, this right here, I saw this, and I believe this is on the American Diabetes Association website, but I think this was very, 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 very good information here. It says, keep in mind that blood glucose results often trigger strong feelings. Blood glucose numbers can leave you upset, confused, frustrated, angry, or down. It's easy to use the numbers to judge yourself. Remind yourself that tracking your blood glucose level is simply a way to know how well your diabetes care plan is working and whether that plan may need to change. So don't feel bad if your blood sugars are not where you want them to be right now, because you can work on them. You can work on your treatment plan. You can work on your healthy habits. You can work on your nutrition. You can work on your movement. You can work on getting your water intake in. So use them as a tool. Just like we use a scale as a tool, use your fasting blood sugar as a tool as well. So over the last 2 weeks, I've checked my fasting blood sugar, and here are my results. Check them early in the morning, first thing in the morning, as soon as I get up. I don't drink any water. I don't brush my teeth. I don't do anything. I just go and I check them. So I roll out of bed and I go to the bathroom, because I keep it in the bathroom, and I check it. And then after I check it, I brush my teeth and so forth, right? But here are my fasting blood sugars. Prior to this first week was the week off. This was the week off because I took my Mounjaro injection on October the 5th. So this first 7 days or so was prior to my injection. This was the week off because I'm doing my injection every 2 weeks. The last injection prior to this was on September 21st. Okay, so then I took my injection on October the 5th, and here are the results afterwards. Kind of the same. So I know that what I am doing overall in my healthy habits is consistent to what my blood sugar is showing. Prior to my injection, my blood sugar was hanging around the high 90s, the low 100s. And then after my injection, the high 90s, it did go into the 80s. And like I said, that helps me to understand if what I am doing is working. And so right now, I'm okay with what is going on with my blood sugars. I am going to work on the off week to make sure that I just pay more attention to my carb intake, so that I can make sure that my blood sugars, I want them to be in the low 90s, high 80s. That's the average I would like them to be at. So I will be working on and monitoring my carb intake on that, especially on that week off, so that I know, so I can control that. Because that's something that I can control with my blood sugars. Now, things that I can't control is, the things on the inside and how my body works on the inside, like stress. I can do what I can control. So I hope that this helped you in some type of way, just to see where my numbers are at, and just to understand what fasting blood sugar is, why I'm checking it, and A1C and what that means, and postprandial numbers after you've eaten. As we continue to monitor our health, as we continue on our health journeys, we just need to be cognizant of what our numbers are. Just like we look at our weight, look at the scale and see what our weight is, just like when we're tracking our food intake, just like when we're just monitoring anything else in our health journey, we need to be cognizant, especially the ones who have type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, there's LADA, there's so many other different diabetes as well. But just be cognizant of your numbers so that you can be in tune with how you need to move in or maneuver your treatment plan. Of course, talk with your doctor. Talk with your doctor about it. So I'll continue to check back in and give you updates on my progress and what I'm doing to tweak and turn and move forward. Because I always want to, even though I'm tweaking and turning and moving, I always want to move forward. We want to move forward in our journey. So I thank you guys. I love you guys. Remember that we are perfectly imperfect wellness warriors, and we are here to continue to conquer and fight for our health. I love you guys. Until the next video or the next vlog, God bless.